WIFTPM
Monster Jam. Coming to Allstate Arena September 17th through 19th. Brought to you by BKT Tires. Visit monsterjam.com for event details. You have to see it live, so get your tickets today.
Keep calling me, give you some love and you want all of it. I'm out here working, nigga, get a grip. I'm just trying to touch a million, you just wanna coexist. I say you clingy and you contradict. Give you my heart, you think it's counterfeit. Give you my word and you won't trust in it. What's the point of loving me if you don't know what trust is? I need the is you give now. Please don't back down on me. You've got the attention I need. Put your pride aside for me. Oh, 'cause I need that ease. Put your pride aside for me. That ease. While I'm out trying to get that ease. Know that I need that ease. Put your pride aside for me, baby. You're insecure, it's driving me crazy. I'm trying to get it and you keep on saying, give it all my love, it's never enough. I put up with you for too long, now I'm over it. You want affection, I need money, I'ma call it quits. That is, put your pride aside for me. That is, while I'm trying to get it, need it. That is, put your pride aside for me. Put it aside, put it aside, put it aside. Put it aside, put it
Good morning, good morning. This is Tasha Napper with I Do, I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. Different setup today, right? Different setup. You are watching with, I'm not in the studio, but I am joined by two friends, my friend Monica Bowman here and my friend Deanna King. And we're just having a girlfriends chat. So we've been hanging out this weekend and decided that we would do the show this way. Excited to be here and to join you guys and talk through just girlfriend kind of stuff. So first, we are, this is I Do, I Did, I Don't. I want you to make sure that you share, and you follow both the I Do, I Did, I Don't page on Facebook, as well as What's in It for the Black People Media, because of course I always talk about the great content that we have on this network. And I want to make sure you take advantage of that. So make sure that you like, that you share, and that you follow as we get into this conversation. So let's go. Let's go. We're just talking as girlfriends about, oh my goodness, when is the right time? When is the right time? That is our topic for today. When is the right time? And we can take this in all kinds of directions, right? So when is the right time to start dating? When is the right time to introduce someone to children, if you have children? When is the right time to ask someone to be married or to say, look, where's this going? You know, we're contemplating these things and want to talk about it. So another thing, when is the right time when we talk about divorce? When is the right time to decide this isn't working anymore and this isn't for me, or to shift things? So I'm gonna start with the I do part, right? So let's start, and we're gonna walk all the way to the I don't part. So when is the right time to say, you know what, I'm digging this person, let's move this to the next level? How long does that take? How long does it take when you meet somebody, and like, when would you expect Monica to hear, I love you? Let me just say this first. I'm the divorced person. Monica is married. Deanna is single. Well, single, dating. Yes. So in a relationship, definitely. All right. So you have three different perspectives here today. That's the thing. All right. So yeah, when is the right time to say, you know what, I'm digging this person. Let's think about next steps.
I wouldn't give it a time. I think certain people just might not want to say I love you first, or they might not want to be committed or full in, not knowing if the other person feels the same way. I think for each individual is different. In my situation, my husband told me he loved me first, but that is a confidence that he had, knowing that I felt the same way. I just hadn't said it.
How long did that take?
A couple of months. I'm prepping that we knew each other since junior high school.
Okay.
So he had liked me since we were in sixth grade. So that just built up to the fact that now we were together and he felt comfortable enough to say that. So it was like a different scenario. It wasn't like we just met and started dating and then 2 months in he said, I love you.
Okay.
So I definitely wouldn't give it a time. I feel like it's more so the feeling that you get from someone. Somebody can tell you they love you all day and still treat you like crap. So it's not about the love thing. It's more so the connection you have and how you genuinely feel about a person as a person. Not because, oh, I'm been with you for 6 months, I must love you. That's not the case.
I guess this is my thing. Like, all right, you feel a connection, but you've been dating for 2 months. Is that right? And you hear I love you, and you really just met this person. Is that the right time? Because that feels super early to me. I would have all kind of red flags going off.
I wouldn't. No. I think that there's certain things that you can feel, like you can say, man, I love the way this girl makes me feel in the morning. Man, I love the way this girl treats me at night. Man, I love how this girl pays attention to me, how she asks me how I'm doing. Good morning, good night. That's stuff that you fall in love with. You don't generally have to just love the whole person at one time, but there's certain things you like and love about a person separately.
All right. So what about you, Deanna?
I mean, for me, it's just like kind of like Monica. It's a feeling. Okay. If I feel it and I feel like I have to express it, I'm going to express it in whatever the time frame is. If it's a month in and that's how I'm feeling, and he's projecting that kind of same energy, or because some people are not good with expressing their feelings.
Sure.
They kind of hold back a little bit. I would rather express it if I'm feeling it versus keep holding it back. And then maybe I'm now putting off the wrong energy towards that person.
Okay.
And they are taking it, we go in a different direction than what I was thinking.
I might have to experience this myself. Because I'm like, all right, I can feel a connection, but I think just given given where I am currently, I would be running for the hills if you told me after 2 months you love me. I'd be like, well, you don't even know me. You don't really know me. Maybe you're infatuated. Maybe you're feeling like good about
why
this.
Question it? Why question it?
I feel
like what he's giving you, and that's how
then take that.
Why question it? Take it and receive it.
Okay.
I mean, in your thing, you were with someone for a very long time.
Yes.
And you trust the fact that they loved you.
True. But it took a while before we actually really said that to each other. I can't remember how long it was, but it was a little while. But, life is different.
Yeah.
And I have to say, you're right in this sense that as you get older, you understand what you really want. You're not trying to figure that stuff out anymore. And so if you're seeing that and you're feeling that and you're giving some weight to what you feel, then that can make some sense. I would still be a little scared though.
I think it's okay to be scared, but I wouldn't reject it, or I wouldn't go running for the door if it happened.
Right.
All right.
I also wouldn't feel like I have to say it back.
Right.
If I don't genuinely
You say it back when you're ready to say it back.
Okay. All right. So the right time to say I love you could be pretty early in the relationship if you're feeling it, but it's a feeling. So then, all right. So when is the right time to introduce the person that you start dating to children? All of us have children. And so when's the right time for
that? They have to start taking interest.
In that part of your life.
In that part, right. Okay. Start asking questions. Okay, well, can I come to a game? Or what do they like to do? Or they're looking for ways to find a connection. Then you kind of feel like, okay, I can bring them into the mix here.
Okay.
Right. If you're dating someone and they are totally oblivious to the fact that you have kids at home.
Right.
And it's like, well, let's go do this. Or on a Friday, let's go fly here and do that. I got 2 kids.
Right.
Yeah. And then you know that they want nothing to do with that.
Right. Do you tell people up front that you have kids?
I would. Yeah.
Because
not everyone can handle that.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. That's very true, because your time and your energy is going to be divided.
Right.
And rightfully so.
Yep.
And people have to be okay with that. And so you just, once they start to show a little bit of interest in understanding and participating in that part of life, when do you know it's right for the kids to introduce somebody else?
I think that you just have to feel it out. I don't know.
And it really depends on the age of the kids too, because that makes a big difference. Someone that's super young
is not going to understand it as much as someone who's older.
Right.
Okay.
And that situation is really going to be a situation by situation, because someone whose father or mother just left and they're super attached to them, and then you try to bring someone into the mix,
they're going to be mad.
It's going to be a mess. It's not going to pan out right the way that you're envisioning it. So, but someone who's a little bit older, who may not have been around their father or mother that much, may take it in completely different.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're bringing up another point that makes me think about the right time. So if it's too early, then when is the right time to actually start a relationship after you have broken up? Like you've now ended one relationship. You have to, if you're single, then I don't know that this matters as much. You don't have children, then I'm not sure. It does matter, because you need to make sure you're okay. Right? You do your own work, make sure you're okay, ready to make that next step. But I think it gets more complicated when you have children in the mix and you're trying to figure out, all right, has this been enough time for me? Am I good? Yeah. But then are the kids good to actually be in a situation where I'm dating now? And so how do you figure out when is the right time to now transition into a relationship after you've ended a relationship and you have children in the mix?
I think the right time is the time you give yourself to figure out who you are and what you want next. I think it doesn't really depend. You can't really, as a person going through that, you can't really focus on everybody else's feelings.
Right.
You have to figure out what you want, your feelings, and what just happened and what's going to happen now. Once you feel confident in yourself and that you know what you want, and you potentially have found someone that you feel is going to make you happy or that you feel is a right fit going forward,
then by all means, you can introduce them.
So, okay, so what happens if that's like 2 months after we just separated? 2 months after our divorce? Because
Then do you really know yourself in 2 months? And do you really know what you want after that?
So that's what I mean when I say what's the right time, because there are people that are going to look at that and judge that, right?
Oh, of course. There's judges everywhere.
How is she already moving on? How is he already moving on to the next relationship? What was this? Were they cheating? All of that stuff comes into play. And on one hand, you could say, well, I don't care what anybody thinks. But on the other hand, you kind of do, because you get all that drama coming at you, right?
And it depends on some of it depends on the situation that you're coming out of.
Yeah.
Were you guys just roommates for 2 years before you finally said, okay, we're going this way? So we were just coexisting in an environment, but it was nothing. Or was it, are you just like, some people can't be alone. Some people can't be by themselves.
Right.
And they have to have someone with them. So they're going to reach and pull for whatever they can find that's going to accept them and just gravitate to them. It's really, again, situational. It just depends on each person, how each person responds. It depends on the situation that they're coming out of. What was it like?
Very true. Nobody will know that.
Nobody will know. And that's the thing. I think everybody has their own life and is living a certain way that maybe not everybody knows how they're living.
Right.
So if something like that happens, whether you decide to get a divorce or maybe you're widowed, and all of a sudden 2 months later you with somebody else, nobody knows what was going on through your marriage or your relationship. You could have had third parties. You could have had 2 people involved extra to your relationship.
That's true.
And when something happens, whether divorce or you're widowed and you've moved on, that person probably has been there for years.
Right.
Yeah.
And can't nobody judge you on that, because that was what your relationship was, and nobody knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. As whoever's in it and whoever's moving on, you have to realize, well, this was my truth. Not everybody knew my truth. And if I'm okay with it, then it is what it is. I think there's more to say that so many people have judgment on so many other people's lives and do not look at the life they're living.
Yes. Right. And just don't know, because it's so true. The more, I think the more that I do this show, the more that I talk to people, the more that I communicate, even in groups that I'm engaged in, I am finding that people's situations are so different. The things that people are open to, either in marriage or outside of marriage, it's just, it's so different than you would think.
Yeah, right.
And so you can't really judge. We can't, but we do, right? It's like, on one hand, you don't want to judge it. On the other hand, we sort of need that reflex to survive. And so we do that all the time, but you just never know what's really going on, what's really happening. We only know what people show us, right?
Absolutely.
And I talk about all the time that Facebook is so curated, and Instagram, like, we're showing all the good parts of our lives, not necessarily the bad and the struggles.
Of course.
And that's why it's so impactful when people do when people do come forth and they're vulnerable and they are and they show these things. I even remember when people were not wearing makeup, they would come and just take these selfies with no makeup, and we're like, oh my gosh, because we're so used to presenting the absolute best and not the worst stuff, which is unfortunate.
And regardless how you feel, you have to look and present yourself a certain way all the time.
Right. And so it becomes this situation was not real. Right. What we think is real isn't really real.
Oh yeah.
And then unfortunately, the younger folks are believing that this is the reality of it, right? This is, everything is sunshine and rainbows, everything. I mean, and then they don't, I just, we can go on a whole show about that, but we're not talking about that, right? We are talking about when is the right time. So this is Tasha here. I'm with 2 friends, Monica and Deanna, and we're just having a girlfriend chat about when's the right time? When is the right time for all these different things that come up in life, and dating and marriage and even separation, and then divorce. Like, when is the right time for those things to happen? And how do you know? How do you know when is the right time? So we talked a little bit about dating. We talked a little bit about introducing to children, if you're dating someone, and when's the right time to introduce them. And so, all right, that's kind of that. So when's the right time to get married? When is the right time to get married? We're going to walk through this I do part first. So you've been dating, you're introducing to family and children, and now it's time to get, you're like, when is it the right time to get married? Should you even get married? I think we still have this viewpoint that marriage is the end all, and that it's this fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
And then you get married and you're like, that shit is not true.
What happened?
Right, like what happened to the happily ever after part? Like, this is work, and a lot of times I don't like it. And so, when really is the right time to get married? Because now you're walking in more sober. At least for me, I'm walking into this more sober. I don't know that I would get married again. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it.
I don't think so. We didn't get married till after our kids were what, 4 and 2, so around there. So it wasn't like a rush to get married. In regards to, like, I would say the way you're raised, usually with being Spanish, they tend to want you to be married. Like, you have to be married to have kids. You have to do this. So I would say me and my cousins, we all had kids without being married.
Okay.
There wasn't like a rush to have to do it. I know there wasn't pressure by my parents to say at a certain age you have to do this and this, but your grandmother feels
that's great.
At a certain age you should be this.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really a need. I don't think I needed to be married. I think because of the person I was with, I wanted to be married. I wanted that commitment. I wanted that happily ever after. I wanted that. It wasn't necessarily a need for it.
Okay. Right, because you already had the children. It wasn't like you were making a decision because you were pregnant.
Correct. Like we were together for years, and then he proposed when my daughter turned 1. So it was like, and then we waited a couple of years after that before we even got married.
Okay.
So it wasn't like a rush. But I do feel now, as being 41, that you look at your parents' marriages and you're like, there ain't no way. There is no way they were happy this whole time. I think that a lot of our parents and relationships that we see when we were younger were very fake. I think that they didn't tell you the truth on how everything goes. I don't think that they told you that the arguments that you would have, the stuff that you guys do not believe in together, like it's just different things. And I think it was like so hidden that when you get older and you see these things, you're like, why wouldn't you just say the truth?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just tell me that this is not a happily ever after? Because the way everyone presented it around you is like, we've been married for 20 years and it's been so great. And then you're like, well, what happened? So am I wrong? Like, what's wrong with me then if it's not been so great? Right. You understand what I'm saying?
And then it's like you get into it and then stuff happens. And folks are like, oh yeah, that's how it goes. I'm like, well, how come I didn't understand that up front? Why didn't I understand how much work this was so that I could do the work I needed to earlier figure out how to have the right conversations so that our expectations were aligned and our goals were aligned. It's all this stuff. So I saw this meme the other day that said, should people get marriage licenses? Should marriage licenses expire like driver's license so people can choose whether they want to renew it or not? And I was like, I'm kind of liking this concept because you don't get, like, you actually have to take a test and pass the test to get a driver's license, but not to get married. Right? You just walk up and say, okay, we want to do this, I do, and no training, no skills, just we love each other.
But here in Michigan, marriage licenses expire. Like if you don't get married by a certain date, it does. You have to go and reapply for it.
Yes, that's just to get married. Right. I'm talking about after. All right, you're married. All right, we need to renew in year 5. I got you. Year 3, year 5. Like, do we? I kind of like the concept because it makes you. It like forces this period where you have to stop and think about this relationship. If it's working, is it not?
Like what are your happy moments, what are not, and what do you see you can let go of and what you cannot?
Yeah. And then you move forward with it. So I'm sure that could present all kinds of other challenges, but I kind of like the concept.
I also feel like back in the day, or the way people were raised, were like, if you got divorced, it was like a failure, and something was wrong with you or that other person. And I think nowadays it's not. It shouldn't be considered a failure. It should be considered like a life experience that may just not be working anymore.
Yeah.
And that's it. You shouldn't be frowned upon for making decisions for yourself. Like, oh, well, I don't want to be in this no more.
Yeah.
So
I think it still happens. Like, I feel like I felt that sense of that projection of the sense of failure. I did not feel like I failed.
Right.
But I think society tends to still project that to you or try to place that on you. That
and what's crazy is like, you may not think you failed, but you speak to other people and you be like, oh man, maybe I did. Like maybe that I did something wrong. Like maybe I wasn't perfect, or maybe you realize a lot of things about yourself when you're just honest and there's a lot of transparency. Like maybe I could have done this better. Yeah, you did this, but yes, let me look at what I've done as well.
Right.
And that wasn't cool either.
Right.
I think for a lot of reasons, a lot of people just be like, well, you know, he's nothing. He did this and this, so I'm out. Well, what have you done?
Yeah.
What have you done to change? If he told you he didn't like this, did you change it ever? Did y'all have a talk about what he liked, what he didn't like, and you just was like, I don't care what you say, I'm gonna be me and move on. And then you're shocked when things happen.
Yeah.
Like, you have to reevaluate all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it's a good time to take a break because we've covered the I do part. We're gonna cover the I did and I don't part when we come back. This is Tasha with I do, I did, I don't know what's in it for the Black People Media. We will be back. We'll take a quick break and I'll see you on the other side of that break.
WIIFTVPM.
Reach the rulers, we go Wednesday, and to my right is everybody's Woman Crush Wednesday. My co-host, the one and only Toy. It goes, love this show, y'all. I'm dealing with a guy. We have been dating for 9 months. In light of everything going on in the world, he has been voicing his opinion about situations, and I don't agree with any of his views. I love everything else except his opinions.
Damn.
How do I fix this? FYI, he's white.
It's about to be a white boy summer.
So could that be the issue?
For sure. Just come out different when it's not coming from your own race. It's just never been something I'd be like, oh, I date Bill.
I'm just a Bill. Yes, I'm only a Bill.
I don't really like light-skinned guys. I don't like pink
Yeah,
meat.
pink. So like it's like you see it.
Pink tip, it'd be pink.
And then pink on the
Yeah, I
tip.
don't like-
So have a light skinned guy have a dark tooth.
And then it look dark,
And you
so it's
can-
not as off to me.
okay, so
I feel
now
like
you-
it's supposed to be pink because they light skinned. You know what I'm saying?
but
But I don't
because
want
it's
it to
not-
be dark because
because
then
it's
I'm gonna
not.
say you dirt.
I miss your kiss. Your kiss is one of a kind. It feels so nice. Girl, you do it right. I miss. Oh, girl, you don't go too fast. You take your time. Just how I like. I miss. Hey. You kiss it, then I'm drifting off your love. Keeps me floating, girl. I miss. And ooh, it feels so good. I wanna come down. Girl, I'm missing that love. Come on. Ooh, babe, I'm missing all those kisses. Baby, bring those lips to me. Oh, babe, I'm missing all those kisses. Baby, bring those lips to me. Come on. Oh, when you're not around, girl, I'm weak. I swear I be hearing things. And if I cannot have you, girl, I'm feeling. Oh, that's such a talent you bring. If I can hold you in my arms, if I can find it real good love. That
All right, welcome back. This is Tasha with I Do, I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. Make sure that you are liking, sharing, and following both the I Do, I Did, I Don't page and What's in It for the Black People Media. We are talking today with Miss Monica over here and Miss Deanna over here and talking about when is the right time? When is the right time for all these things that happened in the process of dating and marriage and separation and divorce? So on the other side of the break, we talked about, some of those things on the I do part. And so we're going to transition now to talk through what happens when you get to this place where you're like, you know what, I did, and I'm not sure that I'm ready to continue this. I might be ready to separate. I might be ready to divorce. And so we're going to the I don't part and the I did and I don't part. And so I think that's we talk about this a lot. So when is the right time to decide or to look at the situation and say, you know what, I don't think this is working. I don't think it's working. I think we should go our separate ways. Maybe we let that marriage license expire. So I guess when do you finally see? So, and the reason I'm asking this question is because many times I think we see all these signs in our relationship, but we are vested in the marriage. Let's say if you're married, you're vested in the marriage and making that work, right? Because we've been taught you marry, you're in it, you do what you need to make it survive so that you don't fail, okay? Or you don't fail religiously or whatever reason behind the failure is for you. You're trying to avoid that. But you see, for a good period of time, this isn't really working. This isn't really what I want. It clearly isn't what the other person wants. And that shows up in all sorts of ways. Yeah. But we keep going. We keep going. And so when is the time that you go, okay, maybe not. Maybe I could keep going with this. And maybe there's a place for putting your best foot forward and working hard to make the marriage work. And then there's this place when this isn't going to work, period. And how do you know that? And when you just get to that place where you're like, all right, it's time.
Did you know a place?
I did. So when I think that I didn't, and I kept working to my own detriment, right? Okay. So I felt like this marriage is killing me in more ways than one. But I was still just focused on, let me make this work. It's not always going to be great. It doesn't, I just have to, let's work on improving it. And I think I had a situation finally when I was like, okay, this is done. This is never going to work. Right. Because now I've lost trust and I've lost respect for the person. I can't stay married to this person because it's never going to work for me. And at this point, it is about choosing what I need. But it was like, I had to get smacked down smacked down in the face to actually stop and go, wait a minute. No. But I should have had some of that before. Right. I should, like if we got to that point, it wasn't serving either of us, I guess. Correct. Well. Okay. But that conversation wasn't happening. And it wasn't like you weren't realizing, I wasn't realizing all of the compromises I made, but I realized how this is really, really hurting me. It's breaking me down. This marriage is killing me. This life is killing me, but I'm still going.
Do you think you were more so still going for you, for your kids, for the family as a whole?
Yeah, I think I still felt like we were building something together, that we were still on the same page trying. And I was still trying to make that reality work. But I also feel like I never had time enough. I was so overextended with work and the kids and church. And I never had time to just stop and take stock again. Okay. After the children came, like we used to do these retreats for ourselves, like 3 times a year. We go away, we talk about how's the relationship going, what do we want? Am I giving you what you need? Is this, what requests do you have with me? And I thought that was great. But once the kids came, that was really hard to still do. And so we went a long period of years of not really truly having those conversations, not getting, I think, what we really wanted or needed fully in a relationship. Not that every relationship can fully give you everything that you need, but I think it was enough that it just really wasn't working and we didn't have the conversation.
Yeah. So, okay, were you communicating your feelings at all? Did he know how you were feeling?
All right. So yes and no. In some way, there were some things that I had communicated and I was just like, this is what it is. And I sort of resigned to this is what it is, right? Because we've been talking about this for years now. I think, to be fair, I think he felt the same way about some stuff. But I also don't think that I personally took the time to step back and think about, let me just stop and slow down. Let me take a minute for me. What do I want? What do I need? And how is this serving me? If it's not serving me, how is this hurting me? And so I didn't really get to the point of having that level of conversation until after we separated.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that's when I was like, if I were choosing again, he would not make the list. So that's when I knew, like, okay, I'm done. This is not. I think it just confirmed it. I won't say that's when I knew I was done, but it just confirmed for me, this isn't doing it. This is not serving me. Clearly it wasn't serving him well. And so, all right. But how do people avoid getting to that place, I guess? How do you find that early enough to have the conversations again so that you don't find yourself there? Like, what do you do?
I don't know how to answer that. I think what I tend to do is I always try to look at the bigger picture. Like, is this worth what's going to be there tomorrow?
Yeah.
I think for a long time, after you become a mother, and I think this is a problem in most marriages, and it's probably causes most of the arguments that you probably have early on in your marriage, is that you take your kids over everyone. In the beginning when you're dating your husband or your boyfriend or whatever, they are like your number one, right? Like, oh, I want to do this for him. I want to do this for them. When you have kids, I would say I tend to nurture my kids more. They're like, your husband, whatever, you put on your second. Like, they are my first priority.
Right.
Been like that for years. And me and my husband have had communications where he's felt like that. And that's open, like, that's how he felt. Like, I wasn't putting enough effort to him anymore. It was only about my kids. And I see that because, those are my kids. Yes, they're our kids, but they're my kids.
Yeah.
And so everything goes to my kids. And so as I'm older and as they're getting older, you tend to realize that it shouldn't be like that. You understand what I'm saying? Because when these kids leave, it shouldn't be like that the whole time. Because when these kids go grown and they leave, it's y'all.
Yes.
And if y'all don't have nothing other than those kids, then what's happening?
Yeah, because a lot of marriages break up at that point.
Because it's a wrap. Like, now we don't have the kids no more. So do I really like you? Do I know you? Maybe not.
Yeah.
So I think what we try to do, we do take trips. We do have open communication. I always try to make sure that the happy list is longer than the not happy list.
Okay. Yeah.
And when the not happy list starts to get way too long, then I know this is it. There's no way that I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Okay. All right.
Whether people see it as a failure, whether they see it as, oh, she gave up, whatever. When that list gets too long, then I can no longer do it.
Yeah.
And that's what I would have to be transparent about. And we have to discuss that. And if my husband's willing to say, okay, well, I'm knocking stuff off of that not happy list because I genuinely want to be with you, then cool.
Okay.
But if there is no, I can't do that, no, I'm not doing that either, and I'm definitely not doing that, then I'm not staying there.
And so what I hear you saying is that you're both vested in working on it. You know, there's some things that you have to work on.
There's marriage issues. There's just little things here and there. Yeah. And it's like, I'm willing to work on it. He's willing to work on it. I would never say that we don't try to make each other as happy as possible for the moment that we're together. Mm-hmm. We try our best. Mm-hmm. I think once one person stops trying, then that's it.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true.
Because that speaks volumes. Like, you can tell me you love me all day, you can say this and this, but once I see there is no effort at all in putting me as a number one priority or putting me as your number one person, then there's no reason for us to be together.
Right. Because you're not trying
anymore. There's no more trying. Yeah.
Well, I haven't been married, but for me, it's communication. I feel like both parties need to communicate their feelings, regardless of what it is, and have a conversation about it and figure out how to compromise or fix whatever the situation is. I don't like to, me personally, just walk away from something without saying I tried my hardest before I throw the towel in. But there is a point where if it's not working and we're not moving together in the right direction, then it's I'm gonna have to bow out because it's not going anywhere. You're stuck. Yeah. And I don't like to, when I get stuck, that's when I start getting very.
And so, but then that happens in marriage, right? Where you sort of get stuck. You sort of get, so two things I want to talk about, because you sort of get stuck and you have to figure out how to work out of that place. And if you've made the commitment, you continue to be committed to it. So then you talk about it, you communicate and figure out how do you get to a different place.
Right.
Because things get stale, you know? But then the other thing that you brought up that I think is really important is this whole thing when the children come, how the expectations have to shift. You cannot be number one now, male spouse, and I have young children as a mother that I have to give my attention to. They cannot do for themselves. And you should be vested in helping to give that attention to them also. But there's a certain amount of things. You can't breastfeed. I need to do that. I need to pump milk. If I'm working still, I'm freaking exhausted, right? Because I'm a new parent. You're learning what you need to do. As a mom, you have to provide so much. And there's just stuff that the dad cannot do. Now, I do think that there are many times that us women don't give them enough space to do more so that they can take some stuff off of us. But we're learning. Everybody's learning at the same time while they're going through this, how to be a parent. But I do think that this expectation that, all right, the sex life should be the same and the amount of time that you spend with me and attention should be the same. It cannot. It's unrealistic. It cannot be the same when there are small children involved. Now, as those children get older, and you're able to pull back and they have a little bit more independence, they can do some things on their own, they're potty trained, they can go, now we might be able to start shifting and readjusting how we spend our time. But this whole thing of you're supposed to snap right back, I'm supposed to still have the same sex drive, sex life, I'm still supposed to give you as much time, but I still work and it's unrealistic. And I'm like, when do the guys, I get that you want to have that time, but how do you not understand that it has to shift also? It cannot be the same.
Right.
And it's going to shift as the children get older. So I just, like, that never fails to, it boggles my mind a bit that guys still expect that same thing. And maybe they expect a little bit of a shift, but not much. Not much. And I'm like, no, that's just not. Like, who talks to the guys to tell them?
Nobody. Nobody talks to them.
Yeah. And so then they don't get, they have
to say like what's going to happen.
Right. Her body.
I would say that my husband now, all his friends that are having kids, he tells them that. That is the first advice that he tells them is, you are no longer, how does he put it? You are no longer either Kobe, Jordan, or LeBron on your team. And he tells them, you're going to be benched for a little, you'll be called in as needed, but you are no longer the star on your team.
That's awesome.
For a while.
Especially for the first time moms. Like, the second comes or the third,
it gets a little bit
different, I would think. But at the same time, the woman has to be vulnerable. We don't like to be vulnerable in that sense and say, if he wants to do something, let him do it. You're not Superwoman.
Right.
So we have to make sure we say, okay, go ahead. If he wants to take the baby, go ahead. If you want to take little JoJo to practice, go ahead. You don't have to do every single thing.
Right.
And that's an issue that we have because we feel like this is my job. I need to do this.
Right.
Or cleaning the house. And this is my job. I need to do this. We need to make sure that our roles have some type of
some fluidity.
Yeah, absolutely. Stop carrying all the loads on you. You don't have to when he's willing to do that.
Especially when he's willing to. Now, for those who are not and still expect that you carry everything, that you have the kids, you cook the dinner, you clean the house, you work, and you like, the porn star in the bed.
Right. You do the cartwheels into the room.
Right. That's just so unrealistic. And so I do think that many times that becomes an issue in the marriage.
Yeah.
And it becomes an issue that can lead to divorce because the expectations are not renegotiated.
Right.
The expectations are not adjusted. The roles are not renegotiated. Like
and
you
nothing's
said.
being met.
Right. And nothing's being met. And then I hear this. So James just commented and said, just because you have children doesn't mean you have to let yourself go.
True.
And I think that's very true. But I also think that you have to realize the body is not going to be the same after having 1, 2, or 3 children.
Right.
You're not going to necessarily look the same. Hormones start to shift as you get toward menopause and after you have children. And the way that impacts a woman's body is different. So if you're expecting her to look the same snatched way from the time you met her when she was 20 to the time that she's 50, unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, for me, I remember how I used to get up at 4:00 in the morning. 4:00 in the morning so that I could go to the gym to work out before I went to work. And I had an hour drive to work. Okay. So I get up at 4:00 in the morning. I drive an hour. I go to the gym. I work out. I go to work. I got an hour to drive home, pick up the kids from daycare. Now go to cook dinner, baths. I always had nighttime duty. So then it was, dinner, baths, books, bed, right? Exactly, right? So I wanted to work out for me, but then there's a second child and a third child. That shit is unrealistic.
Right.
Stop expecting that I'm freaking tired all the time. And when do I have time to take care of myself? Partially because I have small children. And so now I want to do that, but I'm not getting the level of support. So I can just go work out.
Yeah.
I got to keep getting up at 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
To try to make that happen so that you feel good about what I look like. And
what are you doing? Because half of the fathers, they don't look that great after we give birth. So I'm not understanding where he's saying, oh, well, don't lose yourself. What happens to the men that lose themselves and still expect you to see them a certain way? Because it's not just snapping back to your physical, it's also your mental.
Exactly.
You know what excites women sometimes when they're tired? When somebody runs the dishwasher.
Exactly.
That is foreplay for a lot of women.
So
when you wash the dishes, when you cooking something, when you cleaning something, when you taking stuff off her plate. That is foreplay for some women.
Yes, absolutely.
10 minutes of freedom, 20 minutes of not having to do somebody else's stuff and go take a shower, lay down and be sexy. That is what encourage someone.
Yes.
But if you social media.
But if you like, oh, let her clean downstairs and I'm gonna go wait in the bed. Well, you ain't done yet? Like, oh, that's so exciting. Yeah, that's great.
I'm ready.
But blame social media some on its Snapchat. Because you see these young little tenderonis out here, you know, the first they have a baby 2 days ago, the next thing they posted on Instagram, snapback.
Because they got it all snapped out after the baby came out.
You're not realistic though. You're not an average person working.
But half of the guys watching these pictures and these videos don't look good either.
No, but that's their image. They're expecting that. That's not realistic at all.
Not to mention that the
guys are expecting it too.
But they don't look like that.
Yeah. And that so guys still have this view of themselves in high school, even after they started balding, even after they got
gain weight. You think you still hot.
They got the beer belly, and they feel like they still think they can go out here.
That's another thing of you need to find more of a connection than what this person looks like.
Yes.
Because there has to be some sort of love and connection without visualizing this person naked.
Because
it has to be a mental and everything, because you're constantly going to change.
Yes.
You're not going to look how you look when you were in 6th grade. You're not going to look like how you look like when you were in college.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's going to have to drive this person and your relationship is you as a person, not what you look like.
Right.
So the fact that these men are saying, oh, I'm mad because my wife still hasn't lost baby weight. Well, do you love her genuinely? Or do you just love what she looked like in a picture with you? Or you like how she laying down? You know what I mean? Like, then that's not love. Right. It's not.
It's not, because you're going to make them, you understand that that's all going to shift with age and time.
But what's not is her heart and who she is as a person. So that's what you need to fall in love with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think those are some of the things that will lead to I did and I don't.
Yes.
Because the expectations are unrealistic. And so that's what I meant when I said I don't have time to just step back and go, because I'm just constantly moving to try and keep all of it going on a regular basis, and no time to step back and go, wait a minute, hold on. And on top of that, I didn't have anybody else in my life that would come and say, you know what, sis, I'm seeing some stuff. Let's have a talk, because you this is what you look like. Everybody, I have so many people in my life say things like, you just look so good now. You look so happy. I haven't seen you look like that. What was I looking like before?
Why didn't you say something?
Why didn't you come to me and say? And then they were like, oh, it's like the old Tasha's back. When did I get low? When did I lose? What was I lost? What was happening? And you don't notice that about yourself, all those little things that start to shift over time, and then you just look up and it's like, I'm a whole different person. And I'm not fully expressing who I am. And I feel stifled because life has happened, and I have all these people around me that see it, but they're not saying anything to me. What?
Some people feel like it's just, they're scared to say something. They feel like they are overstepping their boundaries by stepping in or involving themselves in business that has nothing to do with them.
Y'all talk to your sisters. Talk to your sisters. If you see stuff like this going on, again, let them know. Like, just talk to them about the fact that what you see in love, and let them know that you're coming from a place where you still support them, but you see some stuff and you just, maybe ask a couple questions, whatever it is, because if you don't have time to stop and take stock like I did, you're not going to see it. You're just going to keep going and going until you run yourself into the ground. And there are some spouses that are okay watching you do that and will let you run yourself right into the ground. But I bet he's still going to the gym. He still play basketball every Friday night with his friends. He still finds time to play the video game, but you're constantly moving and constantly working and not getting anything for yourself. And it should not be like that. And so, you guys talk to your sisters. If you need to figure out how to have the conversation, absolutely send me an inbox on I do, I did, I don't page, and I will help you with the script if you need to. But we need to help each other to have the balance and to get what we need in life and to live our best lives as well. So I think that's going to be a wrap for today. That happened quickly. I know. Yes, it goes so fast. But I'm so glad that you two were able to join me today and we could just talk about some of this stuff. I am Tasha with I Do, I Did, I Don't on What's in It for the Black People Media. Thank you all for joining, and I look forward to more conversations like
Yes,
that. We are really just kind of having the conversations that sometimes don't happen. But again, all of this is done so that you can be better on the other side. So thanks for joining, and I will see you again next week.
Remember, everybody tune in. She will be returning back to 8 a.m. next week. 8 a.m.
Yes, I'm excited about that. So.
Yeah, you don't go too fast, you take your time. Just how I miss. Hey, oh, you can't sit there no